So I just got back from Electronic Textiles Camp, and I thought we'd do a what's in my bag. Oh, everything's in my suitcase right now. Well, I took all the clothing out. It's in the wash. So Electronic Textiles Camp, it's an artist residency in Vicksburg, Michigan. And it was a bunch of people, artists, who work with both textiles and electronics. And we were together in this space for 8 days, and there were a bunch of workshops, and I learned a bunch of things, and I made a bunch of stuff and met a lot of interesting people. We were in this space that used to be a bar, but it was kind of set up as a studio space with like soldering stations and sewing machines, and I mostly spent my time in the knitting machine corner. And then there were like looms and spinning wheels and a whole section for screen printing and dyeing. And like it was an amazing experience. So let's see what I brought back from this. So first, in this bag is the QR code dress. We each brought a piece that we had made to be displayed in a gallery that was attached to a bakery in this small town, and saw some really cool stuff there. So that probably needs to be washed. And then an Electronic Textiles Camp sticker and an enameled pin to go with it. Sunblock. We were staying in like Airbnbs that were about a 15-minute walk from the studio space, and it was hot and sunny the whole time. I should have brought my own, but I didn't think to because we were warned it might be a little cold. It was not. And then I had to go hunting for some, and there's like one little pharmacy in this tiny town, and they only had one kind of sunscreen. A basket that I made. This was so much fun. Adrian taught us how to make these, I think they are Cherokee style double-walled baskets. This was my first attempt, and I'm really proud of it. There were some other really cool ones from the group. I'll post photos. Let's see what else we've got. Camera, carrying case. This is actually the camera I'm using to film this. I didn't want to do much filming while I was there. Like, I didn't want to spend the whole time with a camera in everybody's face, so I didn't take a whole lot. But I did film a talk that I gave about AYAB and how it works. I'm not sure when I'm posting that, but I'll link to it if it's ready. This whole case of electronics, which I didn't even open while I was there. So there were supposed to be one more machine knitter, but she couldn't make it because she got COVID. And she was planning to bring a couple machines that were compatible with AYAB. So I wanted to pack, let me get this open. I wanted to pack one of my interfaces. She had one that she needed help getting set up, and I was going to help her while she was there. But I wanted to bring one that I knew would work. So I had this packed in this case, and then also a camera and a microphone, which I didn't even pull out. But I was glad I had, and now I have this for future travel. What else we got? Color changer. I brought this so we could play with AYAB while I was there. There was one machine that was compatible. There was a 910 and a ribber that somebody else brought, that Sarah brought. And then I set it up to do some fun things with AYAB and help people get started. Extra sponges in case we needed them. It turns out we didn't, but I'm glad we had them. A bag full of electronics. What do we got in here? We got a cable and a power supply that are compatible with AYAB. Phone mount for a tripod, which I didn't wind up using. Spare battery, multimeter, which I did need. We made soft circuits at one point, and I used this to make sure that I hadn't like put a short into my soft circuit. It was a layer of Velostat between two layers of this conductive poly copper, and when you compress Velostat, it becomes conductive, so it makes like a resistor. And then my pocket knife, which I'm glad I had because I spend a lot of time doing knitting machine repair. There was a an 800 series punch card machine that had some issues. I had to take the carriage apart to fix it and get it working, and then I took the bed apart trying to get the patterning mechanism to work correctly, but it didn't. I think there's a gear in there that was stripped or something that was out of alignment because the timing belt wouldn't move correctly, but I didn't get a chance to figure out how to fix it. Maybe that's a job for next year. Small tripod. Large tripod. The Go for mascot. This is a thing. I always travel with this. A friend gave it to me in college, and it's kind of always been in my travel backpack since then. And for a while, I was running a Tumblr where I was taking photos with it around where I was doing internships, but it like has kind of stuck with me. Go is a programming language that was developed at Google. It's like a systems level language, but this little guy was designed by the same person who designed Glinda the Rabbit for Plan 9 because of her whole history with that development team. And there's a lot of lore there that I could go through, but I will skip it for this audience. I have a card reader and a portable solid-state drive. I wanted one specifically for travel so that I wouldn't lose a bunch of footage from ongoing projects, and I had some time to do some editing like on the plane and during downtime. But I'm glad I did this because this drive no longer connects to my computer. And I'm not sure why. The cable might have gone bad or gotten bent or something, but there's nothing on here that I don't have duplicated elsewhere, so I haven't lost any work. Spare yarn and all the things I need to finish my in-progress sock, which I think has already migrated out to my garage. I've still been working on it. I thought I might get started on the second sock, but I didn't even finish the first one. Ribbing goes really slowly when you throw. Where are you? Some swatches that I put together for my talk about AYAB. These are different algorithms for double bed jacquard. This is the classic algorithm. It creates these really stretched out stitches. And then we have middle colors twice, and then a heart of Pluto. What else we got? This is yarn that I made. I learned how to spin while I was there. There was a local, her name was Jody. She'd heard about the program through her, like one of her fiber groups, and she taught a spinning workshop, and like I really enjoyed it. She was doing some really cool stuff with like conductive fiber, so she was spinning blended steel wool and like merino, and she had done some things to like, I think it's called core spinning, where she's got a conductive core and something non-conductive wrapped around it like wool to create like wire that you can weave with. So that was really cool. And she also gifted me some, what is this? Some yak silk, some hand spun yak silk. And I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet, but I think I need to hand knit it because it is so soft. She had a bunch of really cool, like really obscure fibers, like rayon made from a bunch of different kinds of plants, and like a bunch of animal fibers I hadn't seen before. And like she was talking about how she had spun dog fur before. So really cool stuff. And then I have punch cards. I was so excited to see these. There was an artist there named Suraj. His family manufactures saris in India, and he brought a couple to show off, but he also brought these punch cards that are used in jacquard looms. And for those of you who don't know your history, because I know a lot of engineers don't, this is where punch cards originated. They were originally created to control patterning in these big jacquard looms. And these are some real punch cards. These were used to make like one of the border patterns on the saris. And he gave them to me at the end because I was so thrilled with them. Because punch cards were also used in computing in the early days to encode information that could be read by machine. I'll have to figure out how to fold all those back up later. And then I've got a bunch of swatches of stuff that I made while I was there. So let's start here. So I had a 910 set up with a color changer and AYAB, and the project that I was working on while I was there, I didn't get to finish. But the idea is that, like, when it gets really cold and you wrap a scarf around your face, the scarf still looks like your face. So it was a little Python script, used OpenCV to like break up a face and break it down into the right kind of image and pixelate it so that it could be knit into a scarf. And this was the start of doing the calibration scarf. So this was just a swatch to get the gauge. But I had trouble finding yarn that was the right size, and I was working with a set of tools that were unfamiliar to me, so I kept getting like failure after failure after failure. I couldn't find 2 yarns that were the same weight. This is 2 strands of the purple and 1 strand of the black, and the 2 strands of the purple kept having problems, like it would create loops that would get caught on things and I'd drop a bunch of stitches. So I only got as far as starting the calibration scarf. The idea is that I knit like a plain scarf with just a gradient, and then I was going to get a bunch of people to like wrap it around their face to figure out like what would make the most sense for the placement of the face on the final scarf. But I think I'm going to finish this at some point because all of the code is there and all the images are generated. It's up on my GitHub, and then make that a video because it's like almost ready to go. It just needs to be actually created. And then I spent a lot of time playing with wire. Can you see that? This is 32 gauge magnet wire, so it's enameled and it's not conductive in its current state. If you want it to be conductive, you have to rough it up with like sandpaper to get the coating off. But it behaves oddly. Like in this direction, it has drape, and I don't know how much of that you can see. It's got drape, but then not in this direction. And you can kind of mold it into shapes, but not really. So I was playing with it a lot to see what I could do with it. Here's a swatch that's a wire held with another wool yarn, and it creates interesting structures and it behaves in interesting ways. So I was playing with like what happens if I felt the wool yarn, and this piece is not quite felted enough, but this is like a stripe of plain wool yarn and then a stripe mixed with the copper. And here's another without stripes, it's just full, and this is not quite felted enough. I couldn't get the water hot enough, but I want to play with that more. And then I got to this. So this is a massive swatch that I made. It was a full bed and like a giant square, and I thought this was wool yarn, so I was attempting to felt it. Jody was helping me attempt to felt it until I realized it was acrylic, and then we stopped. But then, like, realizing it was acrylic, I thought maybe I could melt it. So I scrunched it up and I hit it with a heat gun that we had in the studio. And this was like the first attempt to see if it would hold its shape. This was shaped around a bobbin, and it does hold its shape. And this holds its shape more than just the wire itself. Like, it's still a little flexible, but the melting the acrylic helped it keep its shape. And I'm glad it survived in my suitcase during the flight. So this is really cool. Like, I want to do something with this, and I actually made a second swatch where I made I kept it. I made an aluminum foil face, and then I shaped the swatch over the face. And I don't know how this is going to show up on camera, but like, it's a face coming out of the crinkled stuff in the background. And I just think this is really cool. I'm probably going to turn this into a tutorial about how to make Halloween decorations, because even if you don't have a heat gun, you can probably melt acrylic in the oven. It's going to take some trial and error to figure out a good technique without a heat gun, but acrylic yarn and wire can do some really cool stuff. And that's everything I brought home. Yes, that's everything I brought home. Overall, I would highly recommend this program. I learned so much, but I wouldn't have, like, had I not been encouraged to apply and do this, I probably wouldn't have done it, because I don't consider myself an artist. Like, I do a lot with textiles, I do a lot with electronics, but I don't consider myself an artist. But one of the organizers of this program was helping us out with some grant stuff for AYAB to like try to fund more development and things. And she recommended I apply, and I did. And I'm glad I went, because I learned so much. And it probably spawned multiple side projects. I got talking to one of the weavers about how they add electronics to their looms, and it's like this one CompuDobby. which is like a handful of solenoids in a box, but it costs $4,000 to turn a regular old loom into a computerized loom, and it really shouldn't cost that much. And I'm thinking about like, how do I get access to one of these looms? How do I learn how to weave so I can like help sort out building an open source version of this? I think that'd be really cool. I also made some connections at Jim McCann's lab at CMU, and it sounds like they want to build an AYAB backend. So let me explain, because like I feel like everybody in my tiny little niche world knows what this is, but there's a lab at CMU where they're doing a bunch of stuff with knitting machines, but the thing that I'm interested in is called Knit Out, and they're building like a universal config language for industrial knitting machines. And they already have backends for a couple of the big ones like Shimaseki, but it sounds like they want to build something for AYAB, and like I'm not quite sure what that's going to look like, because like industrial knitting machines can do transfers and do their own shaping and a lot more automated than what domestic machines can do. So figuring out what makes sense to do from that universal config language for AYAB will be like a UX challenge, which is not my normal kind of thing, but something I'd be willing to try. So it might be something like an electronic knit leader for a machine that just attaches to AYAB, but it's something I don't want to look at. And I also figured out that my local textile makerspace is getting in industrial machines soon, so I'm hoping like to figure out how to get Knit Out to work with that. I don't know if it's currently supported. It probably isn't, because it's not like a name brand knitting machine. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I will link to the program in the description so you can go check it out for yourself. I don't know when applications open for the next cycle, but they have an Instagram, and I think that's the easiest way to keep track of them. And I'll link to all the people that I talked about who did stuff and helped with stuff. I won't be there next year because they don't let you do it more than once. They want like a new group of people coming through every time, so it's not like just the same people over and over again. But I'm sure that some of y'all will find it interesting. And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting. Oh. I love punch cards.